Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight for this special session. And Heichka to Connie Adams for doing the table song and for drumming us in this evening. And I also want to say a big thank you to Yams Catering for nourishing our bodies and the drums to nourishing our spirits before we begin this important work. But before we actually get started on tonight's business, I'd like to call upon our relative, Jessica Adams, to open our time together with a prayer. Heichka Usiam.
Heichka to the feather runner, Heichka Squeakle. Good evening, Jessica Thanasqui. My name is Jessica. I am extremely honored to be asked to do this work this evening, to say a prayer to start us off in a good way. Seat talat to seat salt cm. Ni Welsh ait met tanas wael. At saatsa tentamukst. We thank you, Creator, for another beautiful day on Mother Earth. Creator, I ask that you look over our leaders, that guide our community in the right way. I ask that you look over our chief, that looks over our community with such love. We thank you, ancestors, for leaving this land for us to take care of. We thank you and ask you to look over the fish and the salmon that will be coming and running down the river soon. We ask that you take care of our lands and our waters. Heichkasia.
Heichka, Jessica, for sharing your words. You've inherited the gift of speaking and praying and sharing from your heart, sharing love and kindness and care, ensuring that we are all taken care of and recognizing our ancestors. Thank you so much for making sure that we are watched over as we begin this session. Welcome back, Misepkakwelam legislatures. Welcome to this special summer session. As we know, we had to postpone this part of our agenda from the spring 2025 session to come together as Sawasamistehuch to support one another during difficult times. And it was good that we could take the authority that we rightfully have to pause our session, to take care of our loved ones, to take care of our families, and to take care of our protocol and ceremony for sending one of our loved ones to our ancestors, to follow the teachings that we've been taught. And we are our strongest when we are unified and when we're paddling together and paddling in the same direction. So I'm really glad that we had that opportunity to pause that session. And I'm really grateful that we have the opportunity now to reconvene the work that we paused in that session. It's wonderful to see all of your faces around the table tonight. And I know we will continue to accomplish some great work this week. I have two legislatures. You might see that there are two empty chairs here. Legislature Marianne Adams and Legislature Bryce Williams send their regrets, and they won't be able to participate with us tonight, but we know that they are here in spirit. The work that we do, each question that we ask, each debate that we have, each decision that we vote on, we do so for the well-being of the Sawasamistehuch, with the Sawasamistehuch at the forefront of all of the work that we do. Tonight, I would like to welcome the elders that are here with us this evening, our respected advisory council, our community members, our staff, and to those that are joining us on live stream. Thank you for your support and your participation. Finally, a very warm welcome to our feather runner, Dayton Jacobs Mail. Thanks, Dayton, for coming back. We're so grateful that you're here today to support us. You're becoming quite proficient in this work. And we all know that we must wait for Dayton when it's your turn to speak. The staff, the legislatures, please make sure that you wait for the feather before you begin speaking and return it back to Dayton when you're finished. Otherwise, there's going to be a small fine of $5 if you speak before you get the feather. And tonight I'm in the mood to strictly enforce that. Before we get to our agenda, I would like to remind everyone, if you wouldn't mind putting your cell phones on silent, I'd appreciate that. We don't mind if you have to take a call, but it's nicer if we're not disturbed by your ringtone. However fun some of your ringtones are, some do inspire me to bust a move if the tune is really cool. But in absence of that, we wouldn't like it to disturb our business. So thank you very much for that. Our first order of business is to move the agenda for the summer 2025 session. And during this session, we will hear review presentations for the 2025-2030 strategic plan and the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual. We will also hear presentations on the update of the land use plan, the Law Foundation project, and the community safety strategy. We will also hear a report on previous legislator resolutions, hold a discussion on the legislature resolutions that were deferred from the spring 2025 session, hold a vote on the deferred legislature resolutions, hear an update on major initiatives, and hold a vote on motions deferred from the spring 2025 session. At this time, I would like to ask if there are any questions from the legislatures on this session agenda. All right, Heichka, I will now read the motion to approve. I will now read the text for the motion to approve the session agenda. Then I will ask for a mover and then a seconder. Motion to approve the summer 2025 legislative agenda. The smaller print requires the glasses, sorry. Whereas Section 15 of the Tsawwassen Legislature Rules and Procedures requires the legislature to present an agenda for a legislative session. Therefore, be it moved that the Tsawwassen Legislature approves of the following session agenda. Motions and resolutions deferred from spring 2025 session. Motion to approve the 5-year strategic plan. Motion to approve the 2025 Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual. Resolution to request that Executive Council consider an increase to the quarterly distributions. Resolution to request that Executive Council review the post-secondary education policy and employment training policy living allowances. Resolution to request that Executive Council take further action to enforce the Community Safety and Security Act. Reports and presentations. Report on previous legislature resolutions. Report on major initiatives. Presentation on updates to the land use plan. Presentation on the Law Foundation project. Presentation on community safety strategy. May I have a mover, please? Mover Laqualia Tia Williams, Legislature Laqualia. Seconder, Legislature Terry Splotkin, Spilautuit. All in favor? All right, that motion was passed unanimously. Thank you very much. We now may begin our work for tonight. The agenda for tonight is as follows. First, we will have opening remarks from all legislatures. Then we will hear the following items deferred from the spring 2025 session. A review of the 2025-2030 strategic plan, a review of the legislature's Rules and Procedures Manual, a report on previous resolutions, a discussion on the deferred legislature resolutions. Following this, we will hear an update on major initiatives from territory management. Are there any questions for tonight's work? Excellent. All right. I would now like to take a minute I would like to take some space for the legislatures to have some time for opening remarks for the opening of the summer 2025 legislative session. Starting on my left, as always, it seems a lot. Well, I suppose we could start with Laqualia and still leave the chief to last. Okay, well, maybe we can do that for the next session. All right, Heichka. Dayton, we have Kathy again, Legislature Kathy Genge, seems a lot, to start with her opening remarks. Heichka.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see everyone, and it's nice to have some good weather for a change. Um, yeah, it's really good to see everyone because I don't get out very often, and it's good to see that everybody's in good health. That's about all I have to say. And thank you to all the drummers and the prayers and Yum's catering for the good meal. Thank you.
Haichka Legislature Taylor Baker.
Haichka Dayton. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm looking forward to this session as well. It's my first summer session being elected official for Tawasin First Nation, so really looking forward to the week, spending it with you all and discussing. Also looking forward to the summer in our community. We got our graduation ceremony coming up next week and the first fish ceremony coming up the month after, so really looking forward to getting together with the community some more. I'm going to keep it short as well, and I'll leave it at that. Haichka.
Haichka Legislature Pelichia, Don Williams.
Haichka Dayton for the feather. Yeah, it's nice to be back at the table here. We got some busy agendas over the next couple days, and looking forward to hearing everyone's comments and questions and discussions. And yeah, it's nice to be here. Haichka.
Haichka Legislature Halkamatia, Louise Om.
Haichka Squeakosiam. Yeah, I just want to say big Haichka to everybody at the table and all the staff and everybody who has to go out of the way to when we couldn't finish our last session due to a loss in our family. So just a big thank you for that. Really appreciate that and really happy to see everybody at the table and just keep it short. Thanks.
Haichka Legislature Kuyakuya, Andrea Jacobs.
Haichka Squeakosiam, Haichka Dayton for the feather. It's good to see everybody at the table again. Summertime session is always cool just to catch up to everybody. And we have a full agenda for tonight, so I'll keep it short as well. And just wishing everybody a happy, safe summer. And yeah, before we know it, it'll be members gathering already. So I was just thinking that today. It's just around the corner. So Haichka Squeakosiam.
Haichka Legislature Spilautuit, Terry Spockton.
Haichka Squeakquel, thank you, Feather Runner. Siam Nat Siatya E Nat Wilmoch. My dear friends and respected friends and relatives and fellow Indigenous people, Aitnashqualon Quanasi Quanatal Alt Twalap. It brings warmth to my heart to be here with you all today. And I would want to take a moment to send our thoughts, prayers, and love to the 10 First Nations reserves in Manitoba that have been impacted by the wildfires, 9 of which have had to evacuate. Our hearts are with the families and the communities and all those working to keep people safe. Haichka Tsiam Jessica Alt Than Steetwielth. Thank you, Jessica, for grounding us in your prayer through Hunkaminam. To Connie, thank you for the table song, Your Voice Carries Strength, and for drumming us in. And welcome back to our Feather Runner, Dayton. It's good to have you with us again. And a big thank you to Yum's Catering for nourishing our bodies. And I also want to lift my hands to all the staff who are presenting today and Thursday. And thank you for the ones that are here in person and watching on live. Haichka
Legislature Sultanat, Loretta Williams.
Good evening, everybody. That's it. I'm just kidding. I've been told to keep everything short, so I'm going to. But thanks for the caterers. It's always nice to get home cooked food, and just welcome.
Haichka Legislature Luxiston, Trent Genge.
Good evening, everybody. I'll keep this short. Thanks to the cooks, and thanks for the prayers by Jessica and Connie for the drumming. It's good to see everybody here, and I'd like to put out a good thank you for the staff for the paperwork and for supplied to us, and it should be very interesting for all the stuff that has to be brought to the table here. Thank you.
Hejka, Legislator Trent, you're going to have to speak twice because you're going to have to speak for Bryce. Just kidding. Thank you, Legislature. Legislator Squamia, Melinda Cassidy.
Hejka Dayton and Hejka Squeakquel. Thank you to Connie and Jessica for the song and prayers, to Yum's Catering for the delicious dinner, and to all the staff and members that are here and viewing online, and to any other guests that may be watching. I'm really looking forward to discussion on the resolutions we put forward in the spring session and the other plans and initiatives that are going to be discussed. I also hope that people stay tuned for the new opening date for the Cultural Center, which hasn't been set yet, but should hopefully be sometime this month. Hejka.
Hejka Legislature. Legislator Luquolia, Tia Williams.
Hejka Squeakquel. Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is middle of the season, so I don't really have much to say. I'm looking forward to the strategic plan presentation and all of the future work going into the planning and implementing it. Just seeing everything that's taken place, since signing treaty and where we've gotten to today. I mean, there's so much happening all the time, every single day. And I recently had the opportunity to travel to St. John's, Newfoundland for archaeology. And while it was really exciting, I was also kind of devastated to see the lack of recognition of the Indigenous people there. Folks are still fighting for specific claims. And it made me feel really inspired to meet and work with those folks, but it also provided me an immense gratitude to come home and land at YVR and see the beautiful artwork and come home to a welcoming community. I feel supported and just all around love. So I feel really good to be here at the table and look forward to the session.
Hejka Legislature. Dayton, I'll speak first and then I'll invite the chief to speak. Okay, thank you. It is my greatest honor and privilege to be serving as your Squeakquel, and I am so happy that we're here to work together, not somewhat, as one for the work that we deferred in the summer. And as I mentioned earlier, it's amazing that we have the power to choose to do that, to control our government in ways that keep our community and our loved ones forefront in the work, and that we're not lost in the business of work, but we're lost in the love of our community. So I will also keep it short because I get to talk all night. So I will now invite Chief and Legislature Squamish Laura Cassidy.
Hejka Squeakquel. And thank you, Dayton, for the feather. Yeah, I'm just saying, just like to say it's good to be with you all here this evening, and glad to see the community members and staff that are here and the ones that are online, and thank you to the staff for making this all happen. I just want to echo too the thanks for everybody for us letting us take the time to take care of the passing of our loved ones. It's difficult when you lose a couple, couple at the same time. And yeah, and I'm just glad that we practice our culture. And then I just want to say how glad I was to have the grand opening of our Elder Center last week. That was such a wonderful event. And I think everybody was it was just so nice to see everybody so happy and proud of our Elder Center. And I'm looking forward to the opening of our cultural hub and the graduation. It seems like we have more graduates every year, so it's pretty exciting. And I'll just keep it short and Hutchka to the prayers and the song and the great food we had. Hutchka, thank you.
Hutchka, Chief, thank you, each and every one of you, for your comments and your gratitude and your reflections. It's always such a good way to start us off and ground us in the work that we do together, and to hear that all of our voices are heard at this table. All right, let's get to business. I have a double duty person sitting beside me here. My hot seat person wasn't feeling well, and so she went home. So we'll send her a few prayers of wellness so that she can feel better. So moving on to our next item, I would like to call upon Twyla Smith, the Manager of Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs, to present the 2025-2030 Strategic Plan. Twyla and her team have done an immense amount of engagement with the community, working with partners to come up with a draft plan that can be presented to this legislature that reflects the views and the opinions of the community and the work that potentially needs to be done. So Twyla, I pass it over to you. Hutchka.
Try that again. There we go. That sounds better. I'm just slightly too short for this. Hutchka Squeakle and Hutchka to the Feather Runner. It's a real pleasure to be here with you tonight, legislators, and I want to thank the elders for opening your event to staff on Friday. It was a real pleasure and honor to be able to attend parts of that event. So thank you. I'm here tonight to talk about the strategic plan. So I'm going to present the same slides that you heard from me in February. So there's one or two things that are slightly different since then, but for the most part, it all stands. So we'll start out with just some context and about the strategic framework. Then I'll talk a little bit about the charter. So the Honoring Our Ancestors. Sorry, I'm confusing the name of that with another project. The Honoring Our Ancestors Charter, which I'll get into a little bit before I talk about the strategic plan content. So just in terms of context, I went back and I looked at the size of the staff and the budget over the past, going back to 2010, and really what the story I saw there was a lot of growth and evolution of your government. So in 2010, the strategic plan was guiding an annual budget just under 20 million and a staff of 44. Today, the strategic plan, actually this year's budget was 127 million, so a little bit less than last year's, but guiding a much bigger budget and a much bigger staff as well. So of course that means that the plan and the framework itself has to evolve as well. So just a little bit about that evolution of the strategic planning. So we have the new Honoring Our Ancestors Charter that sets out the long-term vision as well as some desired outcomes. So that's really the future state that we're trying to get to and that the government is working towards. And the charter was included in your materials as well. So what that means is that we no longer need to do that revisioning work every 5 years like we were doing before. We have the long-term vision that can stand for 30 to 50 years, and we'll continue to check in on that over time, but we don't need to kind of ask you that same question about your long-term vision every 5 years. And that means that the strategic plan can be a little bit more action-oriented and really a bit more focused on how we can move towards that long-term vision in the next 5 years. But at the same time, we need to be respectful of the decision makers in your government. So a plan doesn't set the exact actions that we'll take. Executive Council, Legislature, you have your decision-making powers that will come into play as well. So the strategic plan and the charter really act as guiding lights to the more detailed annual and, in fact, daily processes that are taking place. So hopefully this diagram is starting to look familiar to you. This is a visual of our strategic framework. So at the top we have documents like the Honoring Our Ancestors Charter that set out things like the vision, values, long-term goals. You can imagine the pyramid is about detail. So at the top of the pyramid, we've got less detail, and then down as you get to the bottom of the pyramid, you've got a lot more detail. So where this plan fits in is in the medium and short-term goals. We've got our 5-year strategic plan, executive council mandates, as well as like the land use plan would be in this category. Then we have, to add more detail to that, we have topic-specific strategies and plans. So a good example of that would be the community safety strategy that you're going to hear about at the next session. And of course, our annual budget and work plans is where the kind of rubber hits the road on these things. So I mentioned the charter. The charter is organized with 1 guiding principle and 6 theme areas and 51 desired outcomes for us to work towards. So I'm sharing this because the strategic plan follows the same organizational framework. So you'll see these same theme areas, but also because I made the note there that 51 desired outcomes is more high-level goals than we've ever had in a strategic framework for TFN before. So just again, that evolution, that growth, the maturing of this framework. This slide goes over the engagement that we did between 2022 to 2024 to develop this plan. So that included sessions at members gatherings, as well as family meetings and some kind of more open community style sessions as well. Okay, on to the real meat, the strategic plan content. So the purpose of the plan itself is, as I mentioned, to guide TFN government towards those 51 desired outcomes with strategies that can be progressed in the next 5 years. So just a few notes about the content. As I mentioned, they're organized under those same 6 themes and the guiding principle. We've also copied the desired outcomes from the charter right into the plan so that we can really keep strong alignment between that long-term vision and what we're doing in the short to medium term. The themes don't neatly align with departments. So if you're kind of looking for like, well, where's the culture and language department or where does the policy department? It doesn't line up exactly like that. Some departments like policy, we're going to see our work across every single one of these themes, whereas the education department might really see themselves mostly within one theme. The themes are also intertwined, so an action can support multiple themes. In some cases, we thought, oh, this could go under this page or this page, and we chose one just so to not have too much repetition. And it's still a really strategic level document that has to be supported by more detailed work plans within each department. And I think really importantly for staff, it's grounded in community engagement. So every action that we put in the plan actually started as something that we heard directly from members. So we may have combined multiple things that we heard or kind of changed the language a little bit, but everything in there really started from community engagement. Okay, so in these next slides, I'm going to go through the theme areas. And I'm not going to read every single action because I think you would get a bit tired of my voice. There's 20 plus under each kind of theme area, but I did want to show the types of actions that you would see under each theme. So under the culture, language, and healing theme, we'll see actions related to language education and revitalization, promoting Tsawwassen culture and identity, building cultural connections amongst families and with those who have become disconnected, and protecting ancestors and their belongings. Under the governance theme, we'll see actions related to leadership and institutions, external partnerships, so with your treaty partners, other First Nations, municipalities, as well as the leasehold population, human resources, and communications and engagement. Under health, wellness, and safety, you'll see actions related to culturally appropriate healthcare and wellness supports, increasing access to mental health and healing supports, fitness and recreation, community safety and access to justice, as well as child and family services. Under ecosystem and stewardship theme, you'll see actions related to stewarding the lands and waters, exercising fishing and harvesting rights, and fighting and adapting to climate change. Then we have the economic prosperity and food security, where you'll see actions related to food security, unsurprisingly, the use of the agricultural lands, economic development, as well as the government's financial management. And then under complete communities, assets, and infrastructure, we've got actions related to housing, community facilities, infrastructure, placemaking, so ensuring the built environment reflects TFN culture, as well as managing lands for future generations. And then the last theme area is education and livelihood, where we have actions related to education, so K to 12, as well as post-secondary training, employment supports, social assistance, and integrating culture and traditional knowledge into education. So just a few notes here on implementation. So as I mentioned, it's not like once this is approved, we must do every single action. Really, these are, as I mentioned, guiding lights, and leaders and staff will look to both the charter and the strategic plan to stay aligned and connected to the community in all that we do, especially in our annual budgeting and work planning processes. Many of the actions in the plan are actually already started. In fact, some of them are repeats of actions you would have seen in the last strategic plan that are still ongoing. But some of the actions are new, and we need some work and consideration to figure out how we'll actually implement them. External partners play a role too. This is something that came up in many of our internal discussions as we worked on the plan, is that some of the actions that we want to achieve, we can't do alone. We need partners to come along with us. We will report on the strategic plan annually in the annual report. That's a really key transparency and accountability document for us. So hope everybody reads it. I'm going to put that plug in because we're working on the next one right now. And I also wanted to mention that the evaluation project will help us build more detailed measurement strategies. So this is a project where we're going to be doing a big community survey, sort of like a census, where we can really learn more about what's happening at the ground level in the community. And that's information that we really want to be able to measure against kind of these actions. Are we making progress? But also evaluate the programs and services that are available to members now. So that's a really important project coming down the pipeline that I think will, if you're looking at the annual report going, we could do a bit more on measurement here, that's very much in our minds. And we're looking forward to building that out a bit more over the next couple of years in terms of measurement. Yeah, so that is all I had for the presentation. The plan itself is in your documents there. And I'll be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Hajka Twyla, thank you for that presentation, that refresher. Are there any questions or comments that you might have with respect to the presentation you just heard from the legislatures? Legislature Kwiakwia?
Hajka Squeakle CM, Hajka Dayton for the feather. Thanks, Twyla, for the presentation. Really good. I love seeing all of the actions for each item. Just looking under ecosystems and stewardship, I don't see a whole lot, like there's 3 points there. For such an important issue. And when we say stewarding the lands and waters, it's such a big word that encompasses everything. So I'm curious as to what that really means. And I know, for our fishermen, even just access to the water is important. So I'm just wondering if that would be under stewarding the waters, just direct access. As Coast Salish people, we don't even have that. So would that fit under stewarding the waters? Hajka.
Hajka for the question, Legislature Twyla.
Hajka Squeakle and Hajka to the feather runner as well. Yeah, good question about the meaning of stewardship. And I think that's the type of thing that will be interpreted differently by different people over time. And as we implement this plan, Andrew, as Director of Territory Management, may look at that and go, I've got some ideas for how we can implement this and bring those forward, put them in his annual work plan. Lands Department might look at that and go, we've got some ideas for what stewardship means in our department and how we can advance that activity. And they'll bring those things forward in their work plan. So in a way, they're meant to be somewhat broad so that different folks can see themselves in that, and different departments can come forward with different ideas of actually how to implement that concept. I don't know if that's helpful or not. In terms of access to water, I believe we put something under the exercising our rights section. I do remember that coming up, and I'm pretty sure it's in there. I wish I could do a little control F in my brain right now, but I can take a look and see where that is when I get back to my computer.
Hechka, Twyla, thank you for the comments that it would be broad. Does the Squatchana framework fit into some of that stewardship work as well? And okay, so all right, Legislature, are there any other questions or follow-up that you would like to have with respect to that? All right, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the legislatures regarding this presentation? Twyla, you've raised your hand.
Heichka Squeakle and Heichka to the Feather Runner. I did want to say, if you had an idea for something you want to see in there, we could incorporate it. It's there's going to be a vote on Thursday, so it's not too late to make an edit.
Thank you, Twyla. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, legislatures. You've got some, Halkamatia, you were giving me a hairy eyeball there. Would you like to have a last comment or a question? Halkamatia, Legislature Halkamatia.
High School Squeakle, High School Dayton for the feather. I was just reading you just said that we were going to vote on this on Thursday, and I was just reading on there, a motion to approve would be presented on March 4th. So I imagine that was the past March 4th, and so I was thinking, oh, we got until next March 4th, but it's it's Thursday? Okay, thanks.
That is correct. All right, thank you, Twyla. You can come back to the hot seat here and support me. If you do have any other questions with respect to the strategic plan between now and the next meeting, please do contact Twyla or any member of staff to ask your question or have any clarifications that you might have, or any inclusions that you might like to present and have that presented on Thursday before the vote. Hechka. Okay, moving on to our next item, I would like to call upon Jen Jansen, Manager of Government Services, to present the Legislative Rules and Procedures Manual. Jen?
Heichka Squeakle Heichka, thank you for the feather, and good to see you all again, legislators. So, as you may remember, at the spring 2025 session, we had a review of the work that had been done to update the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual. So I'm just going to go through a revised version of the presentation to where we are right now, and then there will be a motion to vote to approve and adopt the new Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual on Thursday. Since there have been since 2009, there have been a few specific updates to the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual to address specific issues that have arisen. But there hasn't been a holistic review of the manual since it was first drafted. And so the goal of this update was to align the manual with how meetings are currently conducted and to update some of the outdated or overly formal terminology that was used in the current manual. And also, there was a legislator workshop held in May of 2024. And at that workshop, there were some specific requests to make additions to the manual, and those requests have been incorporated here. And then finally, there was some duplication between the current manual and the Legislator Code of Conduct that was adopted in 2020 2023, I believe, or 2024. I can't remember. And so this draft creates more specific linkages with the code of conduct so that both documents work together. So the revised manual is divided into 8 sections. So I'm just going to sort of quickly go through what those 8 sections are. The first section, part 1, is all about the squeakquel. So that section describes the role of the squeakquel and the process for electing the squeakquel. It also makes reference to the staff support position, which we sort of informally refer to as hot seat, but in the manual we call it the staff support position. Because that was not captured in the previous manual. So some of the changes that we made in this section were to provide flexibility for the chief to assume squeakquel duties or appoint someone to do so until a squeakquel is elected. This is a practice that we currently follow, but is not specified in the current manual. And the new draft also provides some flexibility to conduct business as necessary if there is a delay in electing a squeakquel, or if there's a vacancy in the office. So section 6.2 provides or specifies that only legislators who put their names forward will be on the ballot for squeakquel, and which is again the current practice. And section 6.66 gives legislators the ability to, or the legislature, sorry, the ability to choose a new squeakquel during the term if they wish to do so, which was raised as a desired option at the workshop. And then it also provides a process to remove a squeakquel if they are not behaving in a way that is befitting the office. So yeah, yes. So if you get out of line, you can be removed. So part 2, which is the legislative assembly sessions. So this section covers how sessions are called and is largely the same as the current rules and procedures manual, but there were updates to terminology and wording for clarity. One of the changes, so you may remember there was initially a change to section 8 sub 4, which gives the legislature the ability to call itself into session once per year if a majority of legislators determine it is necessary. At one point, there was an amendment to narrow that to an emergency situation, but based on the feedback that we had at the committee level, which we'll discuss in a little bit, that was changed back to the original wording to make it more of a broad, give broader ability for the legislature to call itself into session once per year if needed. The remainder of the section is largely the same, again, with some updates to terminology and wording for clarity. And then for part 3, which is meetings of the legislature. So this section describes how agendas are set and how meetings are conducted, and also covers attendance. So some of the changes were that section 11.1 describes the procession in and out. That wasn't really described in detail before. Section 11.2 specifies the default order, which is for the procession, which is the seating order, but gives flexibility to the squeakquel to adjust the order as appropriate in consultation with the chief. So sections 13 and 14, in the current manual, these sections were repetitive and perhaps overly prescriptive, so they have been updated to reflect current practices. Section 16 updated the language to reflect that legislators are expected to attend in person unless they are unable to or are protecting themselves and others by attending virtually. And then we also added the provision that legislators are not penalized for missing meetings due to participating in cultural work for themselves, for family members, or for other TFN members. Again, this was a request from the workshop. And then finally, there was a provision that was added to give the squeakquel some discretion to waive penalties for legislators who miss meetings due to unavoidable circumstances. And then section 17, we changed the term, changed to using the term virtual attendance, and then added a reference to the legislature code of conduct, where that defines how legislators are expected to conduct themselves when they are attending virtually. Part 4, which is rules of discussion, covers how the use of the talking feather and the role of the feather runner, which was not addressed in the previous rules and procedures. And then also provides parameters for how to address disruptive behavior. So this would be in, so one of the changes was that section 20 sub 4 in the current manual, there is a limit on speaking time of 10 minutes to one item. So at the workshop, there was a request to remove this time limit and provide the squeakle with more discretion on whether legislators can continue speaking. So the way that this session is amended is now up to the squeakle to determine if a legislator needs to conclude their remarks, and the squeakle has the ability to ask them to do so if they feel that it is time for them to conclude their remarks. And then section 21, which is the section that deals with how disruptive behavior is addressed. The change there was that it was previously, the previous terminology was called to order, which is a very government speaky kind of term. So we changed that to a formal reprimand, but otherwise it's largely the same as how it works now in the current rules and procedures manual. So the way that it would work is first, the squeakle can initiate a code of conduct process if the legislator is continuously disruptive, and then it provides a process for the chief to address a situation where where the squeakle is the one who is engaging in disruptive behavior. Part 5, bills and resolutions. So in the current rules and procedures manual, the 3 reading process is described, but not in great detail. So there was more detail added. The current description is a little bit confusing to read, and it uses some very old-fashioned terminology. There were some processes in the there are some processes in the current manual that are overly formal, where, for example, where a motion is required to call up managers to speak during a presentation. That seemed overly formal, and so we eliminated that requirement. And it's not how meetings are currently conducted, so the language was updated to how meetings are currently conducted. So the section was rewritten to describe the 3 reading process as it currently happens, and then there was added detail for clarity and updated terminology. So for example, in reference to budgets, the updated draft uses terms Appropriations Act and schedules instead of budget bill and series of votes, which is the term that's in the current manual. And then part 6, special committees of the legislature. So this section was actually left pretty much the same as it is in the current manual, other than a few terminology updates. Okay. Section 7, part 7, which is special workshops. So one of the amendments that was made is that there is now a requirement in the new manual. There is a requirement for at least one workshop to be held ahead of each session, which we again reflects how we are the current practice. And then there are a couple sections that were added that also specify that workshops are only for legislators, and that the minutes and other documents from the workshops are not public unless otherwise directed by Executive Council for that. And then part 8, miscellaneous, has a couple sections added about creating the record of proceedings for each session, which is a public document. And then there was an added description for how motions are, the process for doing motions, which wasn't in the previous rules and procedures manual. And then section 43 is the same. Okay, so how we got here. The first draft of the revised rules and procedures manual was presented following the workshop in May 2024. There was an initial draft that was created, and that was presented at the fall 2024 session. And at that session, it was determined that the most productive next step would be to form a subcommittee of the legislature to thoroughly review the new draft manual. So the subcommittee met 3 times during December 2024 and January 2025, working with staff, which included myself and policy analyst Connor Hasegawa. And the committee walked through each section of the new manual, and from those meetings had created the final draft that was then presented on February 25th, 2025. So some of the amendments that were requested by the committee to the initial draft were to provide more information about the role of the squeakquel in the legislature meeting. So there was they expanded that section. In the event that a squeakquel steps down or is removed, the manual should provide clear steps for when and how a vote for a new squeakquel is triggered. And so that language was added. For section 8 sub 5, there's a provision allowing the legislature to call itself into session rather than having EC call the legislature into session. So that was the one that was initially changed and then changed back. So that section remains as it is now in the current Rules and Procedures Manual. And then section 16, which is the section that deals with attendance. There was quite a bit of discussion about this one, and it was agreed that in-person attendance should be required, except in certain circumstances. So there is now a list of reasons in section 16 where virtual attendance is permitted. And among those is with the approval of the squeakquel in extenuating circumstances. So this was added based on feedback that was received at when we presented this in February of 2025. So that's a new update. So other amendments that were requested was to add, so section 8 sub 2 was added to specify that legislators must be notified within 3 business days of the order to call the session being approved. So this is to ensure that legislators are notified in a timely way. Section 22 sub 2 gives the squeakquel some discretion to address an incident privately before issuing a formal reprimand. And then sections 26.7 and 26.8. This is a provision that currently exists in the manual and is intended to address situations where there is a conflict or sort of an even split or a tie among legislators on a particular issue. And so the purpose is to provide an opportunity to build consensus over something that may be sensitive or controversial. The change in language was intended to make the process sound less confrontational. So the feeling was that mediation committee sounded very formal. So it was we changed it to using a word that was more. We changed it to using the word subcommittee, which sounds less formal and is more collaborative. And then section 28 was expanded to clarify that bills come into effect when they are approved at the legislature, and the signature by the chief and to give assent is a formality. Okay. So our next steps, the legislators, again, you have the opportunity to review the updated manual that was emailed to you, and it is also on the SharePoint site. And then on Thursday, there will be a motion to approve the new Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual. And if there is any additional feedback at this time, we can take that back and incorporate any final edits into the draft before we vote on the motion. And that is my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Jen, for that presentation and that review and refresher of all the work that was done and all the work that was done by the subcommittee and what our next steps are. Are there any comments or questions from the legislators regarding this presentation about the Legislative Rules and Procedures Manual? Legislature of Sultanate.
Hitchka for the feather and the opportunity to make a comment. In regards to the fall session, is it going to be in October or what it used to be in November at one time? Hitchka.
Jen?
Hitchka Squeakquilsiam, Hitchka Dayton for the feather. Our intention is to go back to doing the fall sessions in November. The October date was due to special circumstances and the need to pass a bill by a certain date. So the intent is to carry on with the November timeframe for the fall session. Yeah.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, we had to get our information passed so that it could be passed in time for other levels of government, and that was the exception. Hitchka for the question, Legislature. Any other questions or comments? These monitors seem extra high to me today. I'm having trouble seeing everybody. Oh, thanks, Halkamitia. All right. Oh, thank you, Sultanate.
Hitchka for the feather, and this is just a follow-up to your comment. Maybe we should get booster seats.
Or I guess I could, or you could. Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, I'll just point out the monitors are actually brand new. That's why they look taller. They don't lay as flat as the previous ones.
Oh, so it wasn't me.
It's not you.
Oh,
They
I
are
thought,
brand
geez,
new
I'm strange
monitors.
today.
Yeah.
Thank you for making me feel like I'm not losing my mind, because I thought, gee, it doesn't feel like that before. Hitchka. Thank you very much, Jen, for your presentations. Legislatures, you'll have some more time to take a look at the revised manual. And if you do have any questions or comments that you'd like staff to think about before the vote on Thursdays, please don't hesitate to contact Jen or any member of our staff. All right, the next item on our agenda is a report on previous resolutions. I'd like to call upon Twyla Smith again to come back, and the Manager of Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs to provide this report to us. Twyla?
Hitchka Squeakle and Hitchka to Dayton. This one's fairly quick, and then you can get into the good stuff of debating the resolutions. So pleased to provide the update on previous Legislative Assembly resolutions. So this is the same report that was from the spring session. Resolutions, as you know, are a non-binding expression of the will of this table, the legislative table, and are used to direct Executive Council to consider legislative, regulatory, or policy options on a particular topic. To provide transparency and accountability to legislators, staff provide updated information on the responses to previous resolutions at each session. This report provides an overview of the response to the most recent resolutions, so those ones approved at the fall 2024 session, and then a list of all the resolutions approved by this term of government with a summary of the response is also attached within the report here. So I'll just cover these most recent ones and then leave you with the longer list. So Resolution 7 from 2024, resolution to establish a youth council. This one is in progress. Staff have started research on youth councils from other nations and organizations and are working on a plan to engage with Tsawwassen youth to better understand their needs and interests in a youth council. It's expected that recommendations related to establishing a youth council will be brought forward to Executive Council late this year. So I have Tsawwassen member Isabella Corbett working with me on my team for this year and throughout the summer, and she's leading on this project, and really excited to launch it. We've got a survey about to come, I think, next week, and some interviews as well. So we're really excited to be advancing this one. Resolution 8, 2024, resolution on rates for member caterers. So this one is complete, and the resolution really resulted in a lot of good discussions amongst Executive Council and staff that highlighted the ongoing work on how we can improve the ways we work with member caterers. So the events and recreation staff work directly with new and existing member caterers to support them in developing their businesses and get in the catering opportunities for government events that they're interested in. And they also promote member caterers to external organizations. And then the economic development staff are also available to all member businesses to provide advice with developing contracts and payment terms that meet their needs. And I would say just in this work, there was so much support and gratitude we heard for the member caterer businesses and lots of people throughout TFN government that are touched and wanting to work with them throughout various different departments. So that is, and then as you'll see, you've got the list following that, but that is the report on previous resolutions. Hajka.
Hajka, Twyla, thank you so much for standing up and providing that update. Are there any comments or questions from legislators on this report? It's nice to see complete and in progress on the status of these two items that were tabled by our legislatures. Well, thank you, Twyla, for that presentation. Before we move into the next part of our agenda, which is the discussion on the legislature resolutions, where each of the movers for the legislature resolutions will have an opportunity to share their rationale and inspiration for why they wanted this resolution tabled in front of the legislature. So I'm going to give a 7-minute break. That way those legislatures can sort of mentally prepare themselves. We can stretch our legs for a minute. We'll reconvene in 7 minutes. Hajka, bye. Welcome back, legislators. It was good to have a little bit of break and enjoy a little bit of that sunshine and stretch our legs. Okay, now we're going to move into holding a discussion on legislator resolutions that were deferred from this year's spring session. As a reminder, we're only discussing, not voting on resolutions this evening. We will hold the final vote on Thursday, June 5th. But this is an opportunity for us to discuss and ask some questions and some clarifying inquiries and such. There are 3 resolutions we'll be discussing tonight. They are the resolution to request an increase to the quarterly distributions, resolution to request review of the post-secondary education policy and employment training policy living allowance, and resolution to request further action to enforce the Community Safety and Security Act. We will begin with the resolution to request an increase to the quarterly distributions that was introduced by Legislature Taylor Baker and seconded by Legislature Halkumatia Louise Alm. To refresh our minds, I'd like to call upon Legislature Taylor Baker to speak to her inspiration and rationale for putting forth this resolution. And then there'll be followed by a discussion on that resolution where legislators can ask any clarifying questions or engage in further discussion. Legislature Baker.
Heichka Dayton, Heichka Squeakle. My apologies, you have to bear with me. My printer ran out of ink, so I'm reading off of my phone. So good evening, fellow legislators. First, I want to thank Executive Councillor Bryce Williams for introducing this resolution on my behalf last session, as I was unable to attend. The resolution that I'm introducing from last session requests that Executive Council review Tsawwassen First Nations financial status to determine if further increases to quarterly distributions can be made. This resolution is driven by a desire to ensure that our members continue to benefit from the growth and success of our community, and that the distributions that we provide keep pace with member needs. Over the last 15 years, the size of Tsawwassen First Nations operating budget has grown from roughly $8.5 million to $82 million, a nearly tenfold increase. While the budget has grown significantly, most of this growth has been directed towards the expansion of programs and services, and the growth of quarterly distributions has not kept pace. While programs and services are obviously an essential part of the benefits that we provide, our members also deserve to see more direct financial benefits that reflect growth and success of our government. The growth of the budget should be an opportunity to enhance the quarterly distributions so that all members feel the positive impacts of this growth. This resolution seeks to address that imbalance and ensure that our members share in all the success of treaty. I recognize and appreciate that Executive Council has budgeted an increase to distributions for this year. It's a great first step, and shows that we're moving in the right direction. What I'm asking for in this resolution is that Executive Council takes a more in-depth review of Tsawwassen First Nations' current financial status to determine whether additional increases can be made for the benefit of all members. In closing, this resolution is about supporting the well-being of all of our members and ensuring that their contributions to the success of our nation are recognized. Respectfully, I ask that the legislature give this matter careful consideration and support this resolution so that we can better meet the needs and expectations of our members moving forward. Heichka, thank you.
Thank you, Legislature Baker. All right, do I have any comments or questions or inquiries regarding this resolution from legislators? Legislator Kuyakuya, Andrea Jacobs.
Heichka Squeakle, Heichka Dayton for the feather. I tried to wait to see if anybody else had questions, but I'm just wondering, good resolution. Thank you for putting it on the table. And just wondering what a review, if staff or if yourself have any idea of what a review might look like. Would it be from a third party, or considering what other nations have done that have have experienced such an increase in funding to their government and how members can benefit from that. Hachka.
Is there any staff that can answer that? Mark, you are our money man.
Hi, it's Cuz Squeakle CM. Thank you, Dayton, for the feather. And thank you for the question, Legislator Quirk. The review will probably look at our ability to make payments, not just now, but in the long term. Because budgeting is really a choice of where do you put money? Do you put money into distributions equally to everybody? Direct money to programs which are typically more targeted? Those are value decisions that the community makes and the leaders of the community make. That's you. So we'll look at what our longer term ongoing financing options are and what other programs are out there. I don't want to use the word competition for money, but at the end of the day, when you only have limited amounts of money, even though it's a growing amount of money, you need to decide whether you're going to put it into A, B, or C. And those are the options we're going to have to look at. Hachka Squeakle CM.
Hachka, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Legislator Lichia, Don Williams.
Hachka Squeakle CM, Hachka Dayton for the feather. I am in support of this resolution. TFN does have many programs and services that provide a lot for our members, and I really appreciate that, but not all members access it or require some of them. So having an increase to the quarterly distributions does benefit all members across the board. So I'm in support of this for sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Legislature. Legislator Taylor Baker.
Hachka Dayton. I just had a comment to Kwakuya's comment about kind of what this could look like. While Mark had a great answer, just wanted to add that I think internally screening programs to see kind of what's being utilized and what maybe isn't being as utilized as much would be a great start. I brought forward a resolution a year or two ago, kind of connecting to this resolution that I'm bringing today. Because we do have a lot of wonderful programs, but maybe there is some programs and services that aren't being utilized as much as we would like, and maybe we can utilize those funds to distribution funding increasing every year. Not sure, but I think internally we could do a scan for sure, and then I look forward to discussing with Mark and others on Executive Council of how we can approach this, if approved, of course. Hachka.
Hachka Legislature Taylor. Any other thoughts or comments or questions regarding this resolution? Chief? Legislature Laura Cassidy.
Let's see. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the resolution. I guess I was just wondering, I was just thinking of the legacy fund and what we have in place. I guess just trying to see how it would even work or whatever. I guess that's a question for Mark. Like, is this to be considered outside of the legacy fund, just on not within the legacy fund, but on just outside of it. I guess would be the question. Yeah.
Legislature Taylor, and then maybe Mark again. Legislature Taylor, maybe share your vision, and then Mark maybe can share some facts about that, and then Legislature Assaltanat after.
Heichka. And Heichka Chief, the question as I'm nodding across the table, I thought it'd be better to receive the feather and do this better. Yes, I do have a vision of this being outside the Legacy Trust, because I believe that quarterly distributions are separate, Mark, or how, like, thank you. My vision for this is to see the quarterly distribution as it is now. I just got louder. Sorry. I believe it's 1,000 quarterly right now. Maybe we could increase it to 1,250 or 1,500 quarterly, but then go with how the market is for the legacy trusts in the annual part of the year. But maybe Mark could speak a little bit more to that. Heichka.
Heichka Taylor, Legislature Taylor, for sharing your vision. Mark, if you have any thoughts about the Legacy Trust and distribution and how they work together, or they don't work together, or they intertwine, we'd really appreciate your insights and wisdom. Heichka.
Heichka Squeakle CM. Thank you, Dayton, for the feather. Thank you, Chief and Legislator Taylor, because both of you have kind of put the question together, I think. I think from a financial perspective, when you look at money in the hands of members, which is the ultimate goal, you'd have to look at both separately, even though they come from completely different sources. The growth in the Legacy Trust is likely to be pretty significant in the long term, because we have a large land bank that we'll be able to generate revenues from and build up our Legacy Trust. Our ongoing source of revenue for operations is much more limited. So there's tighter constraints on that. At some point, I suspect that some ways down the road, subsequent legislature tables are going to need to look at how much is being paid out of the Legacy Trust, and they may want to stop other programs because so much money is coming out of the one area that, direct financial contributions from the operating budget are not necessary. That's some ways out, but it's the kind of question that we need to look at and project going forward. Thank you, Squeakle.
Heichka, Mark. Legislature Assaltanat, Loretta Williams.
Heichka for the feather. And I think, you kind of answered my comment that I was going to ask in regards to, if we have all the distributions and everything, does that affect the personal programs, the money that we do get? And I'm just thinking about myself in regards to recreation, so this increase will not affect the money that we're getting for different programs. I guess that's what it is. Okay. Does that make sense? Sort of?
Heichka Legislature. Mark is getting his Fitbit steps in. Mark, could you please respond to that question?
Heichka Squeakle CM. Thank you, Dayton, for the feather. Thank you, Legislator Saltanat. I couldn't have asked for a better series of questions all coming together, because just this morning, staff were talking about planning for our strategic session with Executive Council and the legislators that we're going to hold in September, October, before we kick into the budget session. And one of the things that I talked about wanting to do there is, why do government spend money, and doing programs to incentivize people to do a certain behavior, like the recreation programs, for example, or other programs where you're looking to, ensure everybody has a decent quality of life, and there are, programs to try and get people's income levels up. Well, if we are in a situation where down the road, I've talked about us paying $40,000 or $50,000 a year out of the legacy trust. If we end up doing something like that, do we still need income assistance or other sorts of programs of that manner? Those are questions that the community is going to have to look at and address. I said it this morning, and I'll say it again in this forum. Those are community values and community decisions, and as community leaders, you'll be making those. It's, for us as staff to implement what you think is right. But we'll ask you the questions so you can talk about how much the government needs to be involved. But certainly programs where you're looking to incentivize behavior, those would not be programs you'd want to take away because you'd want those incentives to continue. And I hope that really answers your question, legislator.
Mark. All right, we have time, I think, for one more question or so. Anybody else have any thoughts, inquiries, curiosities with respect to this resolution? And you have time to think about it a bit more, because you won't be voting on it until Thursday. But I think we opened up the discussion and raised a few interesting thoughts to be pondering upon and to consider. So thank you very much, Legislature, for sharing your vision and refreshing everybody about what inspired you to table this. And thank you, legislators, for your questions and staff for your answers. I think it's fair to move on to our next resolution for discussion. The resolution to request that Executive Council review the post-secondary education policy and employment and training policy living allowances. This resolution was introduced by Legislature Squamiah, Melinda Cassidy, and seconded by Legislature Pelihua, Don Williams. I'd now like to invite Legislature Squamiah, Melinda Cassidy, to share her inspiration for bringing this resolution forward, and then we will all have time to discuss this. Hechka.
Hechka Squeakle and Hechka for the Feather Dayton. So last session, I introduced a resolution that requests for Executive Council to review the living allowances paid to members undertaking employment and skills training and pursuing post-secondary education. Investing in the education and professional development of members is one of the most important functions we approve when passing the annual budget each year. At TFN, we are lucky to have the opportunity to receive financial support while we pursue higher education, to take courses that develop our professional skills, and to undertake training that improves our employment and career opportunities. And while we are grateful for the financial support that we received from TFN, the rising cost continues to pose a significant challenge to many members looking to build their skills and better their lives through education and training. The gap between what we receive through living allowances and the true cost of living is a significant obstacle that still forces members to choose between educational and career opportunities and having their basic needs met. I went into an example that recently the Natural Resources Department shared an opportunity for members to undertake land guardianship training, which enables members to receive land guardian certification and participation in hands-on work to protect our lands. It was an opportunity that I was initially interested in, but ultimately decided against due to the financial stress it would have cost. I know that this is a situation that not only myself, but many other members have had to experience. With this context in mind, I'm now going to read the resolution and ask that you give consideration so that we can discuss it next, or on Thursday, or now actually, sorry, still reading my old notes. The resolution reads, whereas Tsawwassen First Nation provides a living allowance to members pursuing higher education, professional certification, employment enhancements, and skills upgrades, whereas members' education and skills development and training increases employability, improves career opportunities, grows the capacity of the Tsawwassen First Nation government, and benefits the overall well-being of members. Whereas the current living allowance amounts have not kept the pace with the rising cost of living and do not adequately meet the needs of members pursuing higher education and undertaking training. Whereas members should not be forced to choose between bettering their lives through higher education and employment skills development and having their basic needs met. And whereas each member required to turn down educational and career opportunities for financial reasons represents a lost opportunity to build more skills workforce, support the well-being of members, and grow the capacity of TFN as a whole. Therefore, be it moved that the legislature calls on the Executive Council to conduct a review of the living allowance amounts paid under the post-secondary education policy and the employment training policy to better align with the current cost of living and to ensure that all members have the opportunity to pursue education and training without financial hardships. Hajka.
Hajka Legislator Squamia, for that presentation and that refresher of your vision and inspiration for this resolution. Are there any questions or thoughts or inquiries, curiosities about this resolution that you just heard about, legislators? Ooh, that was almost the same time. Okay, my left eye, I think, was faster. Legislature Palichia and then Legislature Lukolia.
Hajka Squeaklesiam, Hajka Dayton for the feather. Yes, I do support this resolution as well. I know, the rates have been looked at a few times. I don't know when the last time was, but I think doing it more consistently to follow through with cost of living and etc. I think there's quite a few of us in the community who's made sacrifices to take time off work to go back to school. It's not easy, and to be able to give our members a little bit more to encourage them to do so is a great benefit to TFN overall.
Hajka Palichia, Legislature Lukolia.
Hi, Squeakle, and thanks, Dayton, for the feather. Just a comment about this resolution. It feels like a very long time since it's been revised. Knowing folks who live in the city and go to school in the city, it's really difficult for them to want to continue with their education because the cost of living is so high. And I mean, even personally, but so many other TFN members that I've spoken to have not taken courses or gone to university for those specific reasons. And for that, I am in support of it.
Hajka Legislature. Crystal, do you have any comments that you could do that would elaborate upon the history of this work to help the legislatures in their discussion, debate, and thought about this resolution? Hajka, Crystal?
Hajka Squeaklesiam.
Lakwia?
And Hajka Dayton for the feather. I do just want to say that we have increased the living allowances every year based on cost of living. So that has happened. And myself and the policy team have been looking at the post-secondary policy and employment and training policy for the last number of a couple of months and really doing a deep dive into the policy and doing some research, what other nations are doing, what Student Aid is doing, and a number of other organizations. So we are doing a big deep dive of those two policies. So that will be coming back to Executive Council shortly for review, and then I believe to Advisory Council.
Hajka, so much. Are there any other questions or comments regarding this resolution? Okay, Sultanat, Legislature of Sultanat, you're going to have to raise your hand super high, or I'm going to get you that booster seat.
I'll have the booster seat on Thursday, please, or a nice comfy pillow. Thank you. Thanks for the feather. Basically, this is just a comment. I think Tawasin is doing a really good job in supporting their people in regards, doesn't have to be post-secondary, but some kind of training, you know, again, training is just as important for trades. And, you know, like, and knowing what the kids or the people want. And I know there has been workshops and job fairs and education fairs and this type of thing, but knowing what they want and just kind of gearing them, counseling them to continue on. But and just a comment, well, you know, it's a great thing. Okay, Haichka.
Haichka Legislature Sultanat. We've had some good questions. We've had some good little update from staff as well. You'll have a couple more days to ponder this resolution before we take it to a vote at our next sitting. I'd like to thank the Legislature, Melinda, for tabling this and providing a refresher on her vision and rationale for this. I think that now we can move on to the next resolution. Thank you, legislators, for your input on the previous one. Then the last resolution that we are going to discuss is the resolution to request that Executive Council take further action to enforce the Community Safety and Security Act. This resolution was brought forward by Legislature Kwiakwia Andrea Jacobs and seconded by Legislature Spilautuit Terry Splachton. I would like to invite Legislature Kwiakwia to speak on why she was inspired to bring this resolution forward. Haichka.
Haichka Squeakle Haichka Dayton for the feather. My resolution feels a little bit more serious in nature. I think I'll read it out first and then speak to it. Resolution to request that Executive Council take further action to enforce the Community Safety and Security Act. My apologies, I can't speak the language. Whereas honoring our ancestors' charter states that under the Health, Wellness, and Safety section, that desired outcome for community safety is that residents feel physically and psychologically safe within the Tawasin lands. Whereas Section 4.1 of the Community Safety and Security Act states that Executive Council believes on reasonable and probable grounds that drug activity is occurring on Tawasin lands, Executive Council may make any order it considers advisable in respect of the land, and to A, inspect that land, B, stop the drug activity, and C, prevent the reoccurrence of drug activity. And Section 4.2 of the Community Safety and Security Act states that, without limiting subsection 1, any order made under that subsection by Executive Council may include the revocation of an interest in the land. Whereas Executive Council has not yet fully exercised its powers under Section 4 of the Community Safety and Security Act to prevent the reoccurrence of drug activity on properties where it's reasonably and probably known to occur. Whereas the drug activity that continues to occur on properties where lesser enforcement measures have been implemented has caused harm and well-being to the safety of the community as a whole. Therefore, be it resolved that Tawasin Legislature calls on Executive Council to take further steps to enforce the Community Safety and Security Act to ensure a safe place to live for all present and future generations to members. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here for the workshop that Quintil Tonat was able to update for the Community Safety Strategy update. So I look forward to seeing that uploaded so that I can review it as well. So I brought forward this resolution in the fall, and it actually works together with Taylor's previous resolution to consider amendments to the Community Safety and Security Act in the previous session. I just hope that this resolution, my hope is to have Executive Council make this a priority this year. Our motto for legislature is to leave no member behind. And I believe that we take good care of our members, but some of our members are feeling that that is not a safe place to live. And for me, that's a concern. We have members in their families who have literally had to lock their doors for their own safety of their children. Over the years, we have seen improvement. We have seen minor enforcement. Unfortunately, we don't know what those results are, and maybe due to privacy concerns or whatever, but I'm not sure if there's a way of updating or just figuring it out. Yeah. I think everybody knows that this topic, it's very close and near and dear to my heart. I just hope that we can all work together as Natsamat to make our Tawasin homeland a safe place for all of our families and especially all of our children. So, Haichka.
Haichka Legislature Kuyakia for sharing your visions and your hopes for this resolution. Are there any questions or comments from legislators? Legislature Laquolia, Tia Williams.
Haichka Squiggle and Dayton for the Feather. Kwakuya, my hands go up to you. I know we're not supposed to address, but this is something that hits close to home for many of us. Thank you for presenting this resolution. It's very important, and I don't have any direct questions for the legislator. It's probably more legal. I find the Community Safety and Security Act language to be quite broad and honestly a little bit vague in terms of just the language that's used. So I wonder if my question is more, does voting on this open up the Community Safety and Security Act for amendments to strengthen and clarify the language? Such as like what defines an interest holder? I understand that that's within the Land Act. What's the judicial council process in a situation like this? Like, are family members considered or consulted before, the term revocation of land is not something that any one person wants to hear see take place. Feels like the very last possible action after all other avenues have been considered. And there's so many different options to move forward with before that taking of someone's land. And when it comes to discussing members who are in active addiction, the act of revoking land from members who may be vulnerable or incapable of making sound decisions, I don't really know any other word other than unfair besides anything else. So how do we ensure that members with interest in the land are protected and the land is passed on from generation to generation in perpetuity? I think that's it for now. Haichka.
Haichka, thank you so much for that question. Kuyaka, did you want to respond, or would you also like to have staff come up and have a few comments? Right. Legislature Kuyakuya.
Haichka Squiggle CM. And Haichka for the question. And I realize that the wording does sound harsh when you talk about revocation of land and stuff like that. And I do firmly believe also that that would be a very last step. And I do believe that, I think just putting, this is what it says. So that's why I put it down. And I think that just having a look at it and looking at the legal points, there's got to be ways. I mean, I see blue fencing put up, like how many years, how much money does TFN have to pay for that? And who's in there? Like, it's just gotten to that point where it's not keeping anybody out, in my personal opinion. Kids feel unsafe to even go past without being attacked. So when it comes to things like that, that's why. And so, I would never want to see any revocation of any land. And that certainly wasn't my intention when it was put in here. Yeah, but it is in the act. So I really would look forward, should this pass, I really would look forward to a total legal review of something like that, and to see what do other nations do, what can we do? Let's look into it a little bit more. Yeah. We used to have a justice committee many moons ago, so maybe that's why, and that's why I said we don't know what's going on. you know, and due to privacy and stuff. So maybe there is actions happening, but that's the reason why I put it on the table. Okay. It would be awesome if we could get a legal response too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the openness and the honesty in the discussion here. I know that our Community Safety Act has restrictions and complications that do not allow us to act in a manner in which we would like to be able to protect our community. But I'm not sure if Quintiltonot or Mary would like to come up and address some of the limitations or challenges with our Community Safety Act in the context of some of the work that we're trying to do with the Community Safety Panel, with Executive Council, working with our staff to actively find ways to work within the parameters of our own law. Heichka Quintiltonot? Kim? Thank you. Thanks, Dayton.
I'll start and Mary can fill in because my degree was honorary. Hers is not. She's King's Counsel now, actually. Anyways, very serious issue and an issue that has impacted all of us in one way or the other. And it's an issue that's out of control in the whole continent, not just in our little community. I think we have tried to expand our jurisdiction with the Community Safety Act to limited success. And there are a bunch of legal issues, including the Canadian Constitution, the kind of criminal code, and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and stuff that we're up against, and all the case law, developing criminal procedures, and all that stuff is in place for a reason. So we can't really be a court and a police and all that is my basic answer. But what can we do is kind of what the safety strategy is kind of looking at the scope of, and has some suggestions of where our resources might be best placed. The presentation, you won't be here for Thursday, but there's an online engagement session, I think, happening next week, and family meetings with the same presentation. So if people want family meetings with the panel or panelists likely to go through this and to go through the recommendations, I think that will be helpful. I would also say you're going to get a report on Thursday about the legislative project with the Law Foundation we're doing is going to be on the Community Safety Act to try and instill our culture within that law. We don't know how that's going to turn out, but it will at least instill our values as Coast Salish people on how we move forward. In Sarah Morales put it, how do we protect ourselves from ourselves in some cases when we have members that are struggling. Super complex and rich kind of area for discussion, no silver bullets, lots of challenges to implement the current law as it stands due to the reasons I said earlier. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep trying, I think. But that's my preliminary response, and you'll get more context, I think, Thursday and beyond.
Thanks, Quintiltonot. Before you go, does that mean, to Lacolia's question, does that mean a potential law amendment could be in the future? Or
well, it will be even just on the cultural basis. That's the law that's been selected for revision by the end of this term.
All right, thank you.
The nature of which has yet to be addressed.
Thank you, Quintiltonot. Mary, would you like to add some more information to this discussion? Please.
Thank you for the feather, and thank you for the opportunity to talk a little more about this. Kim has correctly, and helpfully identified that this law is going to be reviewed, or is being reviewed, not only as part of the general community safety strategy work, which is looking in a very broad and long-term way about addressing substance use and other safety issues on Tsawwassen lands, but also, as Kim noted, the 2-year project to revitalize Tsawwassen law and incorporate Coast Salish and Tsawwassen legal principles has got as its focus this particular act. So it would be extremely helpful. As I'm sure people know, we've had meetings with our experts. There's going to be a presentation on Thursday talking about that work. And we really are hoping that this particular law will be revisited and reformed over the next couple of years in a way that accurately or more appropriately reflects the values of Tsawwassen law and culture. I should say also, by way of information for legislators, I've had a number of discussions with the external lawyer who's on or coordinating the community safety strategy work, Melinda, about various legal enforcement mechanisms that may be available to TFN. And I think to put them into force, at the moment we don't have a very robust administrative and procedural framework for that. We have an act that looks on its face as though it gives a very broad power to Executive Council, but the challenge in implementing that is if, for example, Executive Council wanted to revoke somebody's interest in land, there would almost certainly end up a hearing in front of a court. And Melinda has a lot of experience dealing with evictions on reserve lands of nations who are still operating under the Indian Act. And she said because the consequences are so severe of requiring somebody to leave their home, even though in that case they are not homeowners in the way that TFN members are, you really need to be able to show an extremely thorough, proper procedural kind of basis for that, which requires a lot of sort of thinking through of the mechanics that we don't yet have in place. So just to let you know that, we have been thinking about these things and considering all of the procedural issues and legal issues that may go into a review or reform of this law, so that hopefully it will provide some greater clarity as well as being an example of law reform that will be based on Tsawwassen legal principles.
Hechka, Mary, thank you for explaining the complexity of enforcement, but the opportunities that potentially could be access to support enforcing our Community Safety and Security Act and trying to create opportunities for us to create a safer community. Are there any other questions or comments? Legislature is Sultanat.
Okay, Hechka for the Feather, and just want to make a comment. And, like all of this is really great, like for the community safety, but whoever is going to be making decisions, you got to really think about the ancestral history, the families and everything else. And you got to respect the ancestors that have worked so hard to build their houses and their land and everything else. So I'm just wondering, is there going to be consultation or anything, or is it just, like the people that are discussing it now? But I think it's important that we do remember the family histories and not the new people coming in that say, oh, or not to be negative or anything, but, you know, like they are talking about how bad this person is, what they did to their property, whatever. But the people that are discussing it, make sure you talk to the families, because not everybody in the whole village, they're not in that same predicament, you know, like we don't know their histories, you know, like why or whatever. But all I'm saying is make sure whoever, you know, like discuss it with us, please. Okay, Heichka.
Thank you.
And respect the, you know, the ancestors.
Hedjka Sultanat. I do believe that that is the intention to have family meetings and engagement surrounding any kind of, well, getting the input from our community and our membership on what would be viewed, what's important to everyone, and what kind of things, like family history, et cetera, like that. So I believe, Sultanat, that there is engagement plan. I think Kuntaltanat mentioned family meetings and other meetings and workshops to come down the pipe. This is a very complex issue, and the views are like a kaleidoscope of opinions. In one breath, I have compassion for people that are suffering. In another breath, I'm frustrated for the safety of my community. In my next breath, I don't understand the challenges that individual faces. In the next breath, I want to wrap my arms around someone and say, what do you need? In the next breath, I'm angry because it's a privilege to be a TWASN member. So the fact that we're having this discussion, and it's important to have this discussion, because then we can have the opportunity to discuss multiple ways that we can get to the place where we need to, and that discussion will shine a light on the way that's going to be the best for us. And the fact that we keep trying just shows our love and our respect for our lands, our community, and our ancestors. There is never one right answer, but the journey to get to the place where we can find successes and safety and get to the place where we have more control over the safety of our community. It's discussions like this that allow us to get there. Legislature Kuya, I am going to offer for any other comments, but is there anything else that you would, I see, I've got two hands here. Legislature Palihuia and Legislature Lacolia. Dayton's getting the names.
Heichka Squeakle, Heichka Dayton for the Feather. The Community Safety and Security Act, it's very personal. There's just so much information, and I think TFN just needs to be really clear across the board and treat all members the same. Unfortunately, we've seen this over the years, that what happens to one member, one family, does not happen to other members and other families, and it's very disheartening. And when it comes to land, definitely, land needs to stay within the original family. There's just no other way around that. And, the engagement sessions, I hope we have some good turnout, because community input and questions and debates and all that, it's very important, and people need to, come together more and speak up more and participate more. So with regards to engagements, I'm just wondering if we can get updates on, over the last couple of years, maybe summary of engagement sessions, on lands, off lands, virtual ones, what are the turnouts, what are the feedback, and what is TFN getting out of these engagement sessions? I'm just really curious about that, because I'd like to see how the turnout is and if our money is being spent correctly with doing off-lands engagements. But it'd be nice to get an update and feedback on that, Heichka.
Heichka Palihuia, Legislature Lacolia.
Heichka Squeakle Sam, Heichka Dayton for the Feather. Just a comment. It's good to know that the community will be able to help guide the act to be more conducive to our ways and incorporating a bit more of Coast Salish culture. I think it was just the language that was really holding me up in the act to really understand and wrap my head around what it is that we'll be voting on, because like I said, I'm in support of this. I'd like to see some more movement, give chief and executive a bit more power to just try and tackle these issues one at a time and all of that. So with that said, thank you for all of the discussion. I really appreciate hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions. We all deserve to be acknowledged and heard. So, Aichka.
Aichka, thank you so very much. Legislature Kuekwia, do you have any closing comments on your resolution before I close this discussion to move to the next agenda item?
Thank everybody for the comments. Unfortunately, I think the intent of my resolution has taken a different turn than what I originally intended. It's focused on something different. So I don't know. I'm not sure if it's going to pass on Thursday. I haven't heard much support for it. So I don't know if it's worth rewording, or I'm looking for Squeakle's guidance on this. If there should be a soft vote on it, or if we should just consider rewording it for such an important issue, for it to be focused on something like land rather than safety. Community safety is what I was really interested in. So I'm at a loss and concerned and wondering and looking for your guidance on how to move forward with something so important. But so that's one thing. Maybe we can just move forward with it and see what happens. On the other side, I just want to thank Quintil Tanat for her words, and I really look forward, and I did sit in on a meeting that was a really neat discussion on the community safety strategy. It was a community meeting. There wasn't too many people there, but everybody was heard. It doesn't, no matter how many people, there was a few families represented, and I really enjoyed seeing how our cultural values can come out in a legal way. And I think maybe that's the key thing. We're looking so often, we're looking at not our ways, our cultural ways, and that we need to use our strength as people and hold up families that support them, not take things away. Let's support them and bring the family together. Sometimes they often feel alone. So just wanted to make those comments too, that I appreciate all of the work that's happening from that side of things on the board. That's all my comments.
Hechka, Legislature Kuekwia. I'm just going to clarify, the intent of your resolution was to call upon Executive Council to take further steps to enforce the Community Safety and Security Act, with the result of creating a safer place. And now you're not sure if this table is, the discussion here is reflecting that support, or are you wanting to change your resolution and modify it a little bit? Legislature Kuekwia?
I think I'm going to leave the resolution as it is. It's already up and on the table. We talked about it in the fall. If it doesn't pass, then it doesn't pass. And I think we all know what the intent is here. If we're calling upon Executive Council to enforce, I would look forward to hearing the response from Executive Council. We haven't even given them a chance, Maybe the response is that we need to look at the act, and maybe my resolution should have said that to review the act more, but process takes so long. I just felt at wit's end when I wrote this resolution, so I think I'll just leave it and see what happens.
Sian Heichka, Legislature Kwakwa, Legislature Taylor Baker.
Heichka Dayton and Heichka Kuekia for putting this on the table. I know for myself, I'll be in support of this resolution, and thank you for tying it to my 2023 spring session resolution. It's good to hear too from Quintiltonot that there's going to be work in family meetings as well, because I think that's where I think a lot of this discussion that we're having around the table aren't just going to be through these changes in your resolution and my previous resolution. I think there's a lot of work to the act in itself. So I think these two resolutions, of course, if passed, are something that's going to be really good for this Community Safety and Security Act, because I find myself to be impatient at times. And I think now, after being on executive council for 2 years now, I've learned good things take time. And I've been fortunate enough to hear the work that the community safety panel has been doing the last 2 years. But I think for me, I've had to learn that it's easier said than done. Like, why can't things be done now? Because that's what I want to be done. But we have a lot of roadblocks and laws that I've come to learn that we've had to navigate through in a unique way while also implementing what we want in the act itself. So I know for myself, when it comes to my resolution from 2023, I'm always kind of like, is there an update? Is there an update going on? And I'm just grateful for staff that have been putting in the work for this really, really important piece to protecting our community that I know all hits home for all of us. But yeah, I'm interested for the discussions. I like Polifia's comments on having updates on the family meetings, of course, keeping them confidential, but if families are wanting to share with us legislators on their feelings on this type of work, I know I would welcome to hear those thoughts as well. But it's a really important piece, and I know just good things take time, but something like this, I'm really looking forward to the Community Safety Panel's Law Foundation project on Thursday, because yeah, it's all important to all of us. And I just want to reiterate that I am definitely in support, and I think that it's just going to open up a really good discussion, because it hasn't been updated in a while, and I just think there's a lot of updates that can be done within the act itself. So really grateful for the communication around the table, though, and people's thoughts, because all of it, I think, will be implemented in a unique way. But I know, especially for myself and all executive council, this is the top priority for all of us. So yeah, thank you everybody for this discussion. Heichka.
Heichka Legislature Baker, I appreciate your comments and your perspective from your experience, and reiterating that this is a high priority for Chief and Council. I saw that Legislature Paliquia had her hand up, and then Legislature Halkamatia. So Dayton, Legislature Paliquia first.
Heichka Squeaklesiam, Heichka Dayton for the feather. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I do support this resolution. Community safety is important. I just wanted to stress that, you know, our members need to be treated fairly across the board, and what happens to one and not the other, that's not fair. So I just want, you know, us to work together, because working together, coming to solutions and making our members stronger in the end is the end goal. Heichka.
Heichka, thank you so much. Legislature Halkamatia.
Heichka Squeakle for the, and Heichka 2 Dayton for the feather. My silence at the table here right now isn't because I'm against the resolution. And I don't see it as an attack on executive council. I see it as more support. This safety is something that's almost on the agenda every week, and we're trying to do what we can. We do hit a lot of legal roadblocks for what we want to do, and maybe getting legislative support behind us will really help us try to push through to find a solution to overcome those legal challenges, because we want to act, and then we're told, no, you can't do that. you're just going to expose, yourself to, legal charges and stuff like that. So we need to work together. So I'm in full support of this here resolution. I see it as Executive Council and legislating being on the same mindset and getting support. Heichka.
Rachka, any other comments from legislatures? Legislature of Sultanate?
Heichka for the feather. And I just want to say, this is one of our better meetings where I'm hearing a lot of discussion, and hearing people, their feelings. And I'm going to make an uncomfortable suggestion, maybe not for tonight, but have a roundtable discussion for, especially the ones that have presented a resolution. And I think they would like to hear from all the legislators around the table because it's really important. Everybody has their thoughts, and it's amazing, listening to, the previous speakers. It's great. And, I think we need to do more of that just to support the people that have presented the resolution, support the Executive Council and our community. The community wants to know what we are thinking. They want to know what we are, just a good thing, so on that, that's the last word. Good night.
Rachka Sultanate, thank you so very much. Are there any other last comments from any legislatures regarding the discussion on this resolution? All right, and this time, Sultanate Kuyakuya will have the last word, and then we'll be moving on to the next agenda item. Heichka Kuyakuya.
Sorry. Just want to thank everybody for your thoughts because it is great, Sultanate, to hear everybody's, and I love your suggestion. But also just wanted to say that I appreciate everybody at legislature, and I love our government and how we are able to bring forward this kind of resolution. And the way I see it, our government, the way it works is, not only do we sit here and work together, our legislature really is the backbone, and we support our executive council, and that's the way it should be looked at for sure. There should be no, feelings of attack or anything like that. And I really appreciate Holko Matia's comments on that as well. So just wanting to lift each other up in this community, that's all we ever want to do. So Heichka, everybody for the discussion. It was really great. Yeah. I guess I did get the last word. Get me back.
Heichka Kuyakuya. I want to raise my hands to each and one of you for having the courage to use your voice, to express your thoughts, your worries, your concerns, your frustrations. We will take the resolution as it is for the vote on Thursday. I think that you've caught a heartbeat of this. Some people have shared their views and I think you've got an idea of where it might land, Legislature Kuyakuya. I thank staff for coming up and adding a little more clarity to it. This is an important piece of work. Before we move on to the next item, a 5-minute break just to change gears from this work and to move into the next presentation. So 5-minute break. Right, legislatures, moving to our next agenda item. I just want to say thank you again for that excellent discussion and for taking a small break. I'd now like to ask Andrew Bach, Director of Territory Management, to present the update on major initiatives. You have the pleasure of being the last item on the agenda. It's almost as tough as being the presenter before lunch, Andrew. So the floor is yours, Heichka.
Thank you, Squiggle CM. Thank you for the feather. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to bring this update. This was a request that came out of the spring session of the legislature. We were asked to provide an update on the major projects happening across our territory. I do not see the PowerPoint. Here it is. You'll see here a map of the traditional territory, and currently there are seven major projects that are happening across the territory. We haven't mapped them onto the map here, but most of them are adjacent to the Fraser River, and those that are not are close to our community here. This is a listing of these projects, and they're at various points along the regulatory and implementation timeline. I will quickly go through these in some detail, but these are the active projects at the moment. There are all of these projects go back in time a couple of years. Only a handful of them are actually at the construction phase. I'm going to begin with a look at the Tilbury Marine Jetty. This is formerly the Westpac project. This is a marine terminal for the export of liquefied natural gas. Natural gas is brought to this facility by a pipeline. It's compressed into a liquid form at the Westpac facility, and then it's loaded onto vessels for use either as fuel for liquid LNG vessels, such as ferries and other kind of shorter distance marine vessels, or for export into foreign markets. So this project received an environmental assessment from BC in March of last year, and a separate federal approval, which is required for the export portion of the project, also in 2024. We have been working both with regulators and the project proponent on mitigation measures, and also working with them to understand the environmental impacts of this project, and designing a suite of mitigation projects that we would roll out in both the short and long term. The mitigation package is currently being negotiated, and we expect to appear before the Provincial Treasury Board sometime this summer. And hopefully we'll be able to bring the details of that to members, hopefully by the members gathering. Although that's not set in stone anywhere, that's not a commitment I'm making to you now, but we are working to get through that process as expeditiously as we can. There is a related project, which is the Tilbury Phase 2 expansion. So with the Tilbury Jetty project, that is the export component, where the liquefied natural gas is loaded onto vessels for, again, either local use or distribution. This part of the project, the LNG expansion, is about the storage and condensation of the gaseous product that's pumped in from the sources where it's collected from. So currently, this is in the application development review phase, and it's going through its 180-day review. There would be a separate mitigation package developed for this project. So we've been able to work with the proponent on setting a more appropriate scale for this project, reducing the number of trips that are required to get building materials to the site. We are asking the proponent no longer to barge in construction materials. We are asking them to bring everything by way of a truck or rail in some cases, but we've been able to reduce traffic on the Fraser River, and therefore we've been able to reduce the environmental impact that our harvesters feel. Next is the Delta grinding facility. This is in the vicinity of the Westpac project, in the same, essentially the same section of the river. This is formerly the Lehigh Cement Plant, and this project goes back, I believe, 3 years now. The proponent is actually reviewing the business case for this project, so the environmental assessment is on hold for this project. We heard from Heidelberg Materials, the proponent, 12 months ago that they were going to pause for between 12 and 24 months. We haven't had any update from them. We don't expect to hear anything this fiscal. So we hope to hear sometime early next fiscal if this project will proceed, and if so, what will the implications be for the regulatory process and the environmental assessment and its review. So again, as we can see here, this project is essentially stalled at the moment. Next is the Patullo Bridge Replacement Project. This project has been underway for quite some time. The existing bridge is at the end of its service life. It's a structure that's more than 60 years old. It costs as much to replace as it does to repair, so the choice was to replace it as part of the Gateway program. Construction on the bridge is happening right now. The new structure will be fully put into place before the old structure is removed, and that will be the decommissioning phase, which is expected to begin in 2026. We've been working both with the proponent and the region and BC as the regulator to make sure that there are opportunities for TFN businesses, whether they're member-owned or nation-owned, to access contracts and set-asides, the regular approach that we take in terms of economic participation in these projects. It's a major project in a highly developed area, so there is less participation from Tsawwassen and Tsawwassen-owned businesses with respect to environmental mitigation because of the really kind of dense urban context that it exists in, but wherever those opportunities are available, we work with our economic development arm to take advantage of those things. The major project that is consuming most of our attention at the moment is the Fraser River Tunnel project. This is replacing, again, another aging piece of infrastructure. This was a project that was started as a bridge, and then government reconsidered how it was going to deliver this project. The local mayors, by way of the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation, also looked at this. They determined, along with TI Corp, who is the proponent, that an immersed tunnel was the preferred method for delivering this project. So there were some changes in the regulatory review that happened. So we are currently working with the province on that new application development review. And we are also working collaboratively with some of our shared territory neighbors, including the Musqueam First Nation, to make sure that we are able to leverage our mutual interests to maximize our participation, not only in the regulatory review, but also to gain access to economic opportunities. As a part of this project, our artists are working with the proponent to provide public pieces of artwork. We're also able to deliver on some of the site preparation components, and there will be some other economic opportunities that come with the kind of the operational phase of this project. We're working with the province to make sure that they are aware of the impacts of this project, particularly on our harvesters. We've been able to make some changes to the scope and location of some of the early components of the project, staging materials and these kinds of things. We are making sure that the province is aware of the impact, particularly on our fisheries, and that's led the proponent to do some additional study and to challenge some of the early assumptions that they made around where to stage some of these materials. We're having them look at storing some of the project components at Ladner Reach, because that particular location has generally the least amount of environmental impacts, and certainly a lesser impact for our fishing fleet. Maybe you've heard of Roberts Bank Terminal 2. Have you heard of it? So we continue to work as we have for several years now with the proponent on the expansion of the Roberts Bank facility. Currently, the major focus of the environmental assessment is the Fisheries Act authorization. We collaborated with the proponent on that, submitted 6,000 pages worth of data to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Right now, Fisheries and Oceans is examining all that material and asking clarifying questions, which they are posing back to the proponent and copying us for our information and comment. We expect a business decision on that project sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. Finally, is the Deltaport Berth 4 project. This is an expansion on the earlier DP3 project, which was undertaken, I believe, 6 or 7 years ago. Again, the proponent, just like with the Delta Grinding Facility project, the proponent in this case is also examining whether or not there's a strong business case for this project, and the review of this under the Assessment Act has currently been suspended pending that determination. I'm happy to take your questions, but for now, that's my update.
Heichka, Andrew, thank you so much for that very detailed and thorough update. I invite any legislators that might have any questions or comments about this presentation to raise your hand high above the monitors, please. Legislator Sultanat.
I raised my finger, not my hand, but thank you for the feather. And Andrew, that's pretty detailed. I guess my only concern is, like it's nothing you could do but, updating the tunnel. It seems like it just keeps changing and changing, and so I feel that doesn't make sense. You know, they got a lane for the bike and the pedestrians, or not for the buses. Do they have one just for the trucks too? You know, like, and so that takes care of the 4 lanes right there in each direction. But anyways, I just want to say that's a lot of stuff happening in Delta. And is the archaeology part of that? Yeah, okay, hi, Joe. Oh, have they found any interesting stuff?
Legislature Andrew?
So unfortunately, there are some parts of the assessment that are within our ability to control and some that are not. We lead our own assessment for some of these projects, so we're able to set the scope of those things and pose very specific questions and come up with some very specific answers. With respect to provincial projects, particularly transportation projects, those are things that fall outside of our jurisdiction. So we have to work with BC and its processes, but we do everything that we can to ensure that our voice is heard inside of those processes. We comment on methodology. We comment on the kinds of information that they gather, the kind of analysis they do, and also the kind of results that get reported out in the end. We've heard very clearly from the community that issues around transit in the area, the way that Tawasin members move across our territory, for all purposes, for economic purposes and cultural purposes and such. We bring that information we can as best we can to proponents and to regulators, and hopefully they can make changes to design that accommodate our wants and needs, or provide resources to us that we can apply to mitigation for those times where impact on our rights and practices is unavoidable.
Hechka, Andrew. Are there any other comments or questions regarding Andrew's presentation? Legislature Kwaklia?
Hechka, Andrew, for the detailed update. I really appreciate it, because I think we had one maybe a year and a half ago, but it's just good to see where things are with this. And I know your team is working really hard on these packages and ensuring that Tawasin is that our people are being represented, and really appreciate and want to hold my hands up to you and your team for that. I'm just curious in regards to the TMJ project. I can see that staff has been working with the province to secure an accommodation package. Is there any way that we can look at that? I mean, we don't need to have it presented, but I'm just curious because I remember having meetings and there was substantial family meetings and stuff, and it was really good and everybody put forward their interest. I'm just wondering what that package looks like, and just more curious than anything. But just wanted to raise my hands up to you and your team for this and for providing this update. I look forward to seeing more of that.
Hechka, Legislature Andrew?
Thank you for the question. There is a term sheet that we have negotiated. The question before us right now is, how do we deliver the valuable elements that are described in that term sheet? And that's a question for the provincial Treasury Board. We're not bringing any of those details forward right now because all that can change due to the discussion that the proponent will have with Treasury Board and that we will have with Treasury Board. We don't want to speculate. We want to make sure that we manage expectations, and we want to make sure that we are approaching this in a way that is above board and supportable. I wouldn't want to provide information that ends up becoming, bad or obsolete because of debate that happens outside of a forum that we can control.
Hechka, thank you, Andrew. Legislature Laqualia?
Hijka Squeakquel for the feather and Dayton for the feather, and thank you, Andrew, for the presentation. Under the RBT2 project, it mentions that TFN will continue to push for a causeway breach. I remember hearing about this around like 5 or 6 years ago. And I understand the process can be quite long to get things approved and move forward and do evaluations and things like that. But do you foresee something like this going through? Are they receptive to it? I'm not really sure what the question is. I like the idea of it.
Hejka Lukulia, I know that I can speak to what Sheila was saying, that she's not going to give up on that. But Andrew, if you'd like to respond, please.
The direction that I and my staff have from Executive Council is to proceed and to continue to advocate for that causeway breach. I will say, without quoting a specific figure, but it's 10 digits. So now we've done our best to demonstrate the ecological value of that project, but it's pretty, and perhaps it's cynical to say that it always comes down to dollars and cents, but it always does come down to dollars and cents. The proponent and the government of Canada have suggested that the cost of the project is out of reach with the inclusion of the causeway breach. Right now, we are doing work with an outside consultant to try to refine some of the costs, the assumed costs of that component of the work. The port has been receptive to doing more work to try to understand our perspective, trying to understand the way in which we have evaluated or have valuated that work. But at the end of the day, we can't compel the Crown to embrace that project. If it doesn't deliver the value that we expect, that will be ultimately reflected in the business decision that the proponent makes. I mean, all we can do is continue to work at this until we know definitively that the project will increase in value for it or not.
Thank you. I'll take one more question because the evening is moving on. So one more question. All right. Thank you, Andrew, for that presentation. Again, as always, if any legislators have any further questions about Andrew's presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to him. Thank you, legislators, for your hard work tonight. This concludes our business for our first night back at the summer 2025 legislative session. I want to say thank you to staff for your presentations and answering your questions, legislators for your questions and your thoughts and your curiosities. Thank you for our culture. Thank you to Jessica for offering an opening prayer to start us off in a good way, for our songbird Connie Adams, for our table blessing and our ceremonial procession in, and who will also be singing us in our ceremonial procession out. And thank you, Dayton. You were on your toes and we kept you hopping and you didn't miss a beat. Thank you for being our feather runner. We really appreciate you coming out here. Your presence gives us strength, knowing that the youth of the generation coming up is here watching us work, keeping an eye on us and making sure that we're taking care of business. So when we hand the torch to you, that you and your generation can take the feather and work for our people as well. Thank you to Yums Catering, who provides the nourishment and the snacks to keep us going through the work that we have to do tonight. I also want to extend my gratitude to our elders and to the advisory council members and to the Swasin Misteyuch, again to our staff and guests that are watching in person and on live stream tonight. I also want to send a prayer to Spilogtuit, who had to leave early to attend to a family matter. Let's send prayers for her family to make sure that everybody's okay. With that, I formally adjourn this legislative meeting, and I thank you all for the pleasure and the honor to be your squeakle tonight. There's a ceremonial procession on leaving, and we can. This meeting is adjourned, and we can proceed with our procession out. Hajka OCA.
Oh.